Welcome, everybody, to NetApp On Air. As always, my name is Nick Howell. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of NetApp On Air. Very, very excited to have my guest on today, as this is a topic that I don't think gets enough attention, and frankly, it's something that I've even kind of slept on myself. So we're going to be talking about ActiveIQ, but more specifically, one of the smaller integral pieces known as the Digital Advisor. So hang tight. I'm going to get our guest on here just after a quick minute. Make sure you're following us and subscribed here on the YouTube channel. Follow us over on Twitch. And hey, if you're not in Discord yet, man, you need to be. Discord.gg/NetApp, or just go to netappdiscord.com and it'll redirect you right there. Come join us. We've got over 100 members of technical, executive, and support staff available to you there in our Discord community, as well as thousands of customers, partners, and like-minded enthusiasts. So come join us. It's a super technical community. I promise you'll have a good time. Also, make sure you are joining us here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. That is on Wednesdays, because we want to make sure that you guys are not missing an episode. They are available on demand here every single week, and you can even watch the previous episodes that we've been doing so far this year, and you guys have been really loving it. Thank you for all of the feedback, the comments, and the interaction. We really, really appreciate it. So make sure you subscribe, set your notifications to all, so you get notified anytime a new post goes up. We've got the next few already scheduled out, so you can kind of check out what's going on. We'll have more up coming soon. But we're here every week, every Wednesday at 10 a.m., so don't miss it. Mark your calendars. All right, so all of the business out of the way, all the housekeeping done. Let's get our guest on, because he's going to bring some knowledge to the table today that I'm very excited about hearing, and I don't even want to wait anymore. Mr. Brett Albertson, thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here.
So you and I have been working together for feels like a decade now, through various forms of documentation and all of this kind of stuff, right? But you have found your way into doing the ActiveIQ Digital Advisor. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey on your side, about how did we get to ActiveIQ and how did Digital Advisor come to be?
Yeah, so I've been a technical marketing engineer at NetApp since I started, but I started in some other tools, like you said, around documentation. And eventually I became the TME and product manager for our sizing tools. And then our sizing tools got actually folded into the ActiveIQ team. I don't know if you know that, but behind the scenes, ActiveIQ and the sizing tools interact a lot, because we generally are selling tech refreshes, which pull in the old data. And from that role, I eventually made my way to be the TME for ActiveIQ, because ActiveIQ, believe it or not, even though it's a heavily used tool, we have 28,000 customer users, separate customer users every month, did not have anyone representing it and doing things like this. So that's what I do now.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're here, because I have quite a few questions with you. For those of you that might be following my personal channel, that journey that's going on over there, or if you haven't seen it yet, there's a couple of racks back there. No, this isn't a green screen. Those are real. There's actual real gear running in those. And at some point, Brett, I'm going to need to stand those up, and I'm going to need to do some checks on them. So before we even get into it, I kind of want to give you a little chit that says, please come back and help me set up my stuff in the future. And I'd like to do that as a live show if you're down for it.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's one of our core competencies. Making sure that your system is healthy and running is one of the core things we do. So let's do it.
Awesome. Sounds awesome. So basically what I would like to go over today is let's start with the 101. So we talked about where it came from. What does the landscape of ActiveIQ look like as a whole, and where does Digital Advisor fit into that sort of scheme of things?
Yeah, so ActiveIQ is built around the fact that we get data from all the systems we make, and that data allows us to monitor your systems and make some intelligent decisions based on AI and ML on how well it's running, and look for problems. And also, ActiveIQ started as the My Auto Support dashboard 20 years ago. And at that time, we were mostly just checking for problems like failed disks, et cetera. But
oh, my heart.
Exactly.
The feels.
That's right. So as you know, I worked for NetApp 12 or 13 years, but I was a partner before that. And we lived and died by the auto support dashboard. And that's great, because, I was a partner using that 15 years ago, and now I represent it. So it's great. Now it's changed names, but it's the same It's the same basic thing. But,
No,
but what
I mean, a big shout out to that. What you were just referring to. There are a lot of times where a guy would show up to my office and be like, "Hey, I'm here to change a disk," and I'm like, "What do you mean?
Yep.
You've got a failed disk." What? So the auto support stuff was, just immaculate. The way that it worked was I could never not have premium support on a system like that because of the situations like that.
Yeah, I have a funny story. I was a partner in 1996, so I'm going to date myself, but I was doing an install. I was doing an install in a data center up in North Raleigh. I won't name the company, but and they had just bought what they called a filer, and at that time we were selling Sun Microsystems systems and storage, and I had no idea what they meant by a filer. And I saw it there, and there was a knock on the data center door, and it was a delivery guy with a box and a disk in it. And it turns out, this filer NetApp storage controller had a disk fail, and unbeknownst to the storage admin, NetApp just shipped a disk and got there. And that case automation is what ActiveIQ does. So I'm going to talk about the user interface today, but I will mention that behind the scenes, the most important thing we do by far is case automation.
Yeah.
We automate thousands of cases a year where, a memory DIMM or a disk fails or a power supply, and no one in our support department has to do anything. That just all happens behind the scenes. And auto support and ActiveIQ power that. Case automation.
I love those kind of throwback stories because it shows just how long we've been doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's not that fundamentally anything has really changed. It's just that the way that we're presenting it to the world and to our end user base has a shiny new veneer with some extra widgets on top of it, right? Yeah.
Anyway,
so let's go ahead and bring it up on screen for people to see, and just kind of walk us through it. Now, again, I want to preface this by saying, full disclosure. I got into the VMware stuff 10 years ago, and I went off into left field. I didn't do a lot post being a customer with or ActiveIQ or any of the kind of day-to-day management facilities that I would have used previously. So this is a lot of this is new to me as well as the evolution of what we've now done with BlueXP, and that we're going to have Chuck on next week talking about. Heads up, mark your calendars, subscribe, notify, all that stuff. But yeah, take me through this as if I've never seen it before, as if I'm a brand new customer.
Sure. And I'd just like to mention that Digital Advisor is available as a standalone website, activeiq.netapp.com. It's also available inside BlueXP. I just want to show you this. I'm going to demo it standalone, but it works the same. It doesn't make any difference which way you access it, which is great because you'll see next week that BlueXP has a bunch of advantages. The other thing is if you use Digital Advisor from within BlueXP, you're already authenticated with BlueXP. So some of our workflows link to workflows in BlueXP. And if you're already in BlueXP, then when you click that link, you don't have to re-authenticate. You're just already there. So I'll just point that out.
Now, are there support entitlements required to have access to that information? Do you have to have auto support turned on your callbacks on your systems?
That is a great question. So yes to both of those. So, ActiveIQ is funded by your support contract. And if you let your system lapse, you will, after 30-day grace period, lose access to the system in ActiveIQ. If you are unsure about what support level gets what feature, there is a link here called Support Offerings, which actually has a matrix and it shows you. We do have a few premium features, which are for, the higher level contracts. I'll try to point that out as we go through if anything's premium. The core functionality, though, is available to anyone as long as you have any sort of support or warranty. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, so ActiveIQ is based on that. And then the other thing is that you do have to be sending data back. So if you're in a secure data center and not willing to send us data back, we're not going to be able to decide if your system has security vulnerabilities because we wouldn't know that because you're not sending us data. Right. In a dark site situation, we highly recommend using Unified Manager for which is an offline binary, and ActiveIQ Digital Advisor, the website, and ActiveIQ Unified Manager, the offline binary, share the same wellness, the same risks, the same inventory, The main difference is that there are some additional features that we can do because we have access to more data, like we'll talk about later, like cloud recommendations. That's not something a dark site version of Unified Manager is able to do. So that's one of the many differences. But
Gotcha.
In a dark site, definitely highly recommend using Unified Manager because it's better to have that than to not have monitoring on your systems.
Well, since you brought up dark sites, I'll anticipate the question: is it possible to reverse proxy out of it, throw an Nginx instance in front of it to send the data back?
You can, and I have instructions. There's a TR with instructions how to set up a proxy. You also can manually send auto supports. You can literally, we have an upload site. I think it's just upload.netapp.com, and you can literally upload auto supports if you really are blocked. So yeah, as long as you get us the data, we'd be happy to process it and populate your dashboard.
Perfect. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so let's pretend. So I'm looking at NetApp IT's own inventory. I like to demo with NetApp IT. They're our own IT department. So this is not fake data. This is real live data. So don't pick on anyone from NetApp IT. No one has everything green up here. No one does. So, and they have 535 systems. It's hard to have every security vulnerability taken care of on 500 systems, So, but yeah, so what we're looking at is the main dashboard for a customer. If you are a customer, you just log in, and when you log in, you will see this by default, except it'll say your customer name on top. And this is your main dashboard. And in the main dashboard, we put the most important things. The most important thing is across the top here. And this is the wellness widget. And wellness is our most used area because most people use ActiveIQ to help monitor the health of their systems. So you asked before, like when you set up those systems in the rack, the first thing you should do once you get auto supports flowing is to log in, put in their host name, cluster name, serial number, or I guess you'd be part of NetApp since you're an internal person, but and then check out this wellness widget here. And I'm going to delve into that in a second, but let me pause because I've just been talking.
No, keep going because it's good stuff, and I think this is beautiful for. I think everybody wants a dashboard with widgets that's an at a glance 30,000 foot view. Okay, how's everything going? All green, cool. I can go back to work. It's like that sort of thing. But it's not exactly just put that up on a big monitor in a NOC or something like that, or near your desk or wherever you're working, so you can just like glance up at it, make sure everything's okay, and then keep doing whatever else you're doing. Right? All of us as systems admins want that or have that kind of thing.
Yep, that's exactly right. And this dashboard's a little busy because there's 500 some systems. I actually picked a system, and I did, this isn't like deeply planned. I just literally picked a system out of a hat. Okay. And this is a real, for some reason, it's got 9 nodes and not 10, which I do not understand, but I think they might have a failed node right now. I'm not sure, but that doesn't really matter. But this is a real system. And notice the color coding looks a little better here because there's a lot more green, and it actually has green, yellow, orange, and red. And they're literally like green is good, and yellow is warning, and orange is kind of bad. And red actually means that you have high impact, high likelihood, unfixed risks. So we're going to look at the 2 red categories right now. So if this were my system and I was the storage admin, the first thing I'd want to do is click on the 2 red ones. So let's do that. Let's see what's making them red. So
since this is browser based, is there any kind of poke? Like, do we send notifications, dings, or anything like that?
So we do not, but really critical problems automatically open cases, and those do send notifications. Yep. The ones I'm about to work with here are they were one step down from so critical that they opened a case. Do you know what I mean by that? So they were like, we call them critical, high, medium, low, and best practice. And critical gets a case, and they don't even appear here because someone calls you or a disk shows up. So this is the one level below that, the highs.
Gotcha. So we don't show criticals here. What you were just describing.
Actually, we do show them, but since you usually fix them almost immediately,
Yeah.
They do show up as red. So I have seen cases where someone had an unfixed failed disk in thing, and it just shows up as red. And then in the risks, it'll say there's a category here called hardware config change, and you'll click on that if there was one, and it'll say you have to replace this disk. Yeah.
Gotcha. So. Same for controller upgrades or shelf modules or anything like that, right?
All that stuff. Yep. It will show up here. So I looked at this ahead of time, so I know what I'm about to look at. But let's say I want to fix these issues. I'm going to first go to firmware upgrade. If you don't know, firmware upgrades in ONTAP are generally non-disruptive. You can do disk, shelf, firmware updates without disrupting the system. So imagine this was my system. Notice there's a shelf module out of date, but we have marked that as best practice, meaning this is not like an important one. Then we have a disk firmware that's marked as medium. Medium's kind of important, but not, life and death.
When you get around to it.
Yeah, look at this one. First of all, it has the word critical in capital letters at the beginning. That's always bad. And it's red. Red means it's high impact if it affects you. You could click on this for more information. And what this is a disk firmware. We've identified where a disk firmware has higher than normal failure rates, and there's the bug, and we want you to fix it.
Gotcha.
So there's a KB article on how to load a disk firmware update. So you can click on that if you want. I'm not going to click on it. It just brings up the KB article on manually fixing a disk firmware, which has been the same process for 25 years.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. But what's pretty cool is one of the things we've been working on the last year is these fix-its. And by fix-its, I mean, so you don't have to do it all manually. There's a wrench and an A. And the wrench is an integration we have with Unified Manager or with BlueXP. And if we have an integration to automatically fix something, like a disk firmware update in this case, this would be lit up. And then you could click it, and you could automatically remediate that problem. Now, these aren't lit up. I will tell you that I'm not doing deep roadmap, but very shortly we are going to stand up firmware updates in BlueXP with an integration in BlueXP, and so there in the very, very near future, this will be lit up, and you'll be able to click it to remediate that.
So, quick little side note for folks:
sure.
Some of the stuff. So, as of 9/11/1. Gebs, don't kill me if I'm getting this wrong. I believe as of 9/11/1 in System Manager, you can do automatic. It will automate the firmware updates for you.
Yeah, and that's
in System Manager.
Yeah, and that is the integration we're going to leverage. We're just going to implement it in BlueXP, so that's where the little wizard is going to be to do it. But yes, there's already an integration with System Manager and ActiveIQ to do firmware updates. Yes, and you're right. I think it's 9.10.1 actually, but
okay, so
I'm
earlier
not
than I
100%
thought.
sure.
Yeah.
But
I know they're very excited about those automatic updates that they've been working on for a couple of major releases now.
I am too. I was just working on, with a customer issue around that. Not a bad thing, but like it was one where we needed a DQP, a disqualification package, if you know what that is. And there was a little corner case there, so we got that worked out recently. But did you notice this A is lit up?
What would that A stand for?
Well, you know this, but that's the Ansible A. And Ansible is an open source enterprise scripting language that's owned by Red Hat now, technically owned by IBM, I guess. But what we've decided is, Ansible, since it's an open source cross-platform enterprise scripting language, we have actually programmed some of our fixes in Ansible, and you can click here, and what you get is a custom script. You get a zip file with 4 things. You get a custom script, an inventory file, a quick start guide, and the actual disk firmware you need. Nice. And those are inside the zip file. And then the zip file, like I said, has the actual, their scripts are called playbooks. It actually contains the playbook. And so you just run it in Ansible wherever you have Ansible stood up. In fact, I have a Mac laptop and I have Ansible installed on my laptop. I can actually run this right from here and fix this disk firmware. So it's pretty cool. So you just click that, download the zip file, and Bob's your uncle. You get your disk firmware on these. And just so you know, This actually affects 7 systems, not just one system, 7.
Wow.
So
is that
script,
playbook that you pulled down going to be for all 7 systems?
That's exactly right. That's the inventory file. The inventory file has each of these systems in it. So you could comment out or delete the ones you don't want to do if you want to test it first, let's say. But yes, the script contains the firmware for all of these systems. Yep.
Damn. That's genuinely
cool.
impressive. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So let's say that you're done. Let's say you fixed this.
How long does it take to poll and catch up once you've made the fix?
So the one thing is, ActiveIQ Digital Advisor relies on auto support data. So have you ever noticed that at the end of most KB articles, it tells you to run a manual ASAP? The reason we do that at the end of most KB articles where you do maintenance is because that is what updates ActiveIQ. Otherwise, we have to wait for the next weekly to come, which won't happen until Saturday night. So, but this script, in fact, does kick off a manual ASAP for all these systems. So what happens is in a couple of hours, we'll be updated. It depends how big our queues are right now. We have queues of that process the ASAPs, and they take sometimes as little as 20 minutes and sometimes as much as a few hours. It depends how busy we are right now. And then this will be updated and reflected in ActiveIQ. So, yep, nice. Good question, man. Nice. Let me go back. Now, notice there was also security vulnerabilities. These are pretty important. So the thing is, here are the 3 firmware upgrades again, because almost every firmware upgrade also includes some security fixes. The big one is there's a bunch of OS upgrades, and that's the big one.
Yeah, this system was on 9.10, if I remember right from the dashboard.
So this cluster's on 9.10. So there's all these impacts here, and look at the ones critical. So these are high risk. The one thing about the so this has more detail. Every security risk at NetApp has this thing called a CVE, and that's critical vulnerability something. I can't remember. Do you remember what CVE stands for? I don't remember. But
I know it's like security notification.
Yeah, if you click on this, everyone at NetApp gets a unique number. You could tell this is from 2022 because of the naming. This is an open source library, and this has, affected products, and then what you have to do to remediate them, which is usually an ONTAP or whatever else upgrade. So anyway, we have this nice standardized page with vulnerabilities and whatever.
I looked it up real quick while we were doing it. Common vulnerabilities and exposures.
There you go. Common vulnerabilities and exposures. Yeah. All right. So anyway, but these unfortunately are going to have to take an ONTAP upgrade to fix. But that's a great segue, because if you noticed, Upgrade Advisor is telling you there's an ONTAP upgrade waiting for you. So it's going to recommend go one. You can change this. So don't worry. So
you can just go to 9.11 or a specific P patch or any of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So what it does is target OS version here has a little pencil, and you can pick any P level you want, and it'll plan the upgrade to that P level. Yep.
Awesome.
So yes, so what we do is we default not to the latest. Support has this thing they publish that's like I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they have this thing that says like this is the latest recommended version of ONTAP, which isn't always the latest version of ONTAP. It has to do with how that version is being adopted and if they've had any bugs with it and whatever else.
Well, I know we have the P patches, P1, P2. I've seen P7, right? And then there's the RCs that come out, the release candidates beforehand. Those are never recommended for production or any of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, you're never going to see an RC recommended.
Right, right. So ActiveIQ is never going to recommend that you push an RC. No. Okay, got it.
But when you're ready, when you've selected that, you can select it. It's a whole cluster. You can't have a cluster where some nodes are at one level and some are different. So, but when you're ready, you click Generate Upgrade Plan, and what it does is it asks you a couple questions. It asks you to give it a name, and it defaults to automated non-disruptive upgrade. Remember, ONTAP can be upgraded without downtime. Is that not amazing to me? When that first came out, it was like, no way. How can you update the version you're running on without downtime? Like, that's insane to me. But that's a thing. But it defaults to that, of course, and you can get it in PDF or Excel, and that's it. You just hit submit, and I'll get an email with a plan. Oops.
Awesome. So
right.
what are we going to pull up the plan? I'm curious to see what's in the plan. I'd love to. Well, like, what does it step you through, or we can just talk through it?
No. I can pull up the plan. It's actually it should be done by now. Of course, it's not. While we talk about it. Anyway, it's a step-by-step guide, and that step-by-step guide literally says, do this, check that. It goes to, if you have to check compatibility, it'll link you to IMT. It'll say, make sure to turn off your snap mirrors before you do this. There's a few what they call whatever, and then it goes into the actual upgrade steps, and it's a step-by-step thing, because upgrades are very simple, but there are a few steps. I can't remember the current number of steps, but there's 5 or 8 steps you have to do inside the thing.
If it all works as it's supposed to, you literally don't have to do anything. It's the remediation of certain things that can tend to happen from time to time.
Yeah, a lot of times it's an if, because like we don't know what third party, maybe you're in a SAN environment and you're running HBAs that have a certain, you have to go check that just to make sure they're compatible with the version you're going to, et cetera. So there's some kind of if steps. Sorry, this isn't going very fast. I'll let's just forget about this one for now.
Okay.
But all right. But that was a good scenario that we just went through of the basic things of what you would check on if you're doing a deep dive of one system or a series of systems. And that's a great example of how ActiveIQ is used. Now there's a lot more in ActiveIQ, but that was sort of the 2 most basic things we do is check for problems, tell you how to remediate them, and then if you need to, plan an upgrade.
Perfect. I'm very interested in performance on a personal level because I always found it difficult to monitor or have some kind of a view of like, hey, which systems are pegged out, which systems do we need to be looking at for expansion, for upgrade, what's my capacity utilization across my entire sort of footprint. Those are the kinds of other dashboardy things I would always look at.
So we have 12 months worth of data online. We actually have more than 12 months worth of data, but we don't have it visualized, but you can have up to 12 months of data, and we have it at the cluster, node, aggregate, and volume level. So like I usually go to node level, and then we have multiple graphs. So like one of the most important ones are like protocol IOPS and probably latency. And the other thing is you can zoom into these graphs. So what this is great for, remember, we are not in your data center real time. So we have not very granular performance data by default. There's 2 buts coming. You knew there were buts coming. The first is, what this is really good for is looking at anomalies. Like look at this, what the heck happened right here? And what you could do is highlight it and zoom in. And you can zoom as much as you want. But like, why did latency go to 50? This is an AFF. Why did it go to 50 milliseconds? Well, first of all, network traffic spiked, and this is NFS ops. NFS ops spiked. Now, what was happening on August 29th? I have no idea, but someone in IT probably did a migration, or
I was going to say it's probably controller swappers or a failover or something like that.
Yeah, who knows what, but you can see
it was only 50 milliseconds. Like it wasn't like it took forever, right?
But it's great that you can. It's also just great that you have 12 months worth of data.
Yeah.
Because a lot of tools, because performance data is very. There's just a lot of it. So many counters, and it takes so much space to store it. But remember, we're storing this back at NetApp, so we have petabytes and petabytes and petabytes to store this data, so that we can keep 12 months worth of data.
Beautiful. I feel like there was something like this that was like in Java in FilerView 15 years ago. That something similar to this. But
there was. I think though it only kept like a week's worth of data, but it's very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like real time. If there's something wrong, you can go look at that. But this is incredible to have this level of historical data to go back to, even if it's just within the last week. to find a problem.
Now, the other thing I said, there was a but coming. This is not granular, but you can do a thing called auto support on demand. Auto support on demand will generate what's called a performance archive. And a performance archive has that granular second lead performance data that our support department needs to figure out performance problems. The other great thing about a performance archive is it actually is like a time machine. It goes back in time. So if you had a performance problem yesterday, the performance archive can send data for the last 48 hours back in time, because the data is actually saved on the controller for a few days and then constantly like overwritten. And so you can request an auto support on demand with that granular performance data. And the only person that can, or I should say, the only group that needs that data is our support department. So the support department can request those. And actually I can't. I don't have permission to request those. It's a security thing. But yeah, so our performance people in support are the people that analyze that. And we have a separate dashboard. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called PAS, but it's ActiveIQ PAS. It's actually just for those perf archives, just for that detailed performance data.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, so but the data on these graphs are just the normal that comes in the normal weekly performance counters that we get. That is not
with any boilerplate auto support that you might send in, right? These are going to come in with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool.
Yep. And it does go all the way down to the aggregate and volume level, so you can check out, is this volume a problem, et cetera? Is this aggregate a problem, et cetera? So you get all that layers. One thing I'd like to point out, just because there's a pause here, the other thing you obviously do a lot around is capacity and efficiency. So, we have lots of data to see how your system is using capacity over time. So I love this little graph we do. And then this is a 6-month prediction. So this system isn't running out of capacity, obviously, but you can imagine that you might have systems running out of capacity and you need to forecast that. So if I go back to NetApp IT, there are some systems that are running low. There's a planning widget here. And one of the planning things is what capacity additions you might need to do over the next 6 months. So if I click on that, this will actually show me systems that they're not full today, but they're growing full. So
that gives me anxiety.
Yeah. Now look at this system. What the heck happened? So some of these systems have crazy graphs because our IT department migrates data. Like, look at that. They obviously migrated the data. And some of these systems have crazy graphs. So don't worry about the graphs themselves. But we do warn you about systems that are getting what we use is 80% full in a year is what our benchmark is for putting them on this list. So 80%, over 80% full in the next year.
Within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
So notice this isn't full yet, but it's on the path to be full.
So so what's the select? If you go back into that real quick for me, Brett, there's a select node at the top. Is that just a way to toggle between the list behind it?
The different nodes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a shortcut because there's multiple on this page, so you don't have to exit and go back.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so what you
besides performance, this is one of the things that I would have to deal with constantly was capacity issues. And that was a long time ago. Capacities were a lot different. We were dealing with 144 gig drives instead of 10 terabyte drives. But I look at stuff like this and I'm just like, man, what I would have given to have had access to something like this at that time.
Yeah, notice we just added this recently. It says request to add capacity. Now, so I will tell you today, as in this is being recorded March of 2023. All this does today is sends an email to either your sales team or if you buy through a partner, the partner sales team today. But I will tell you that I have already seen a build of this running in our testing environment. We are going to integrate this with Fusion to actually come back and recommend a shelf based on your hardware config, meaning we will check that you have the right amount of ports and you have open slots to put a card or whatever, so you can add capacity, and we'll try to match your existing disk drives and actually say you need to buy this set of parts. But that is not in production yet. We're literally working on it as we speak. But yeah, right now this emails your sales.
Do you think we're going to take it as far as becoming the storefront to an extent, or at least spitting out a BOM that you can hand to a partner and say, I need this CDW?
Well,
or,
the BOM, yeah, part of the requirements for this thing is it is going to actually spit out a BOM in the end. Yeah. So yes, but I'm not in our finance department, but my understanding is you can't just like run a credit card and buy storage as a customer.
No.
So
It's
not that simple.
My interest was rather than going through the sales process that I know can be a deterrent for some customers, right?
That's exactly right.
Is there a shopping list that I can just forward the email to wherever I buy my goods from, whatever?
That's the plan, and that's going to release what we call this semester, which is in the next. Well, anyway, the first half of this calendar year.
Asterisk subject to change.
Asterisk, that's roadmap. So roadmaps can subject to change, but yes, that I've actually seen a beta of this, so it's pretty close. So
I've heard about it. I hadn't seen it sort of manifest yet, but I've heard whispers of it. Yeah.
So that's capacity, and we also do storage efficiency. So just like capacity, if you go back into this widget, we help customers save a lot of space. NetApp, oops, my session timed out. It'll go back in. NetApp, we do not make disk drives, right? I mean, we're a storage company, but we buy them from people. So our IT department's saving space. Look at this. This is not FACO numbers. We have 18 petabytes of physical space, but we get 63 petabytes of logical space, effective space. 63 petabytes from 18 and a half. That's pretty cool. And this is not FACO numbers. This is our real IT department that you and I depend on. It is insane. Yeah, it's really good.
I see a top 5 systems button. What is the top 5 that are the most efficient?
Yeah.
Holy
look at the ratios.
Smokes.
Now, to be honest, these might be backup targets, as you know, that those do insanely good. These could be we have a VDI environment in NetApp. VDI and decompresses insanely well. So or I should say dedupe. So so look at those ratios. That's insane.
That's insane.
Anyway, but I'm just saying though that we basically created 44 petabytes of data via storage efficiency technologies, mostly compression, flex clone, and dedupe are the big 3, as you see here. So pretty cool. Also, you can count snapshots, but this isn't real. We include this because some of our competitors include savings from snapshots into their storage efficiency calculations, which is pretty fake, in my opinion. But anyway, you could turn that off.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm curious to see what the difference is when you go back there for me real quick.
Okay,
capacity and efficiency. And you're looking at all systems versus just your AFFs. Like, is there what's the purpose of putting that
AFF
there?
So AFF has the inline compressions and inline dedupe, whereas FAS, it's post-process compression and post-process dedupe. So generally you get higher storage efficiencies for AFF. And in fact, that's true. Look, so it's 3.3, and for AFF only it's 5.02. So we're getting 5 to 1 in our AFF environment here at NetApp IT. So that's pretty cool.
I think that one hits home for me because I think a lot of people go through the sales process or the prospective sales process hearing about efficiencies and effective capacity and all of that stuff. But how it really affects your long-term purchasing plan, your procurement plan, I should say, of how long that system is going to last versus another system that you might buy that isn't as efficient or is counting snapshots as part of their efficiencies. So I look at this and what I see kind of big picture is, oh, wow, that's going to last me a really long time. I may have to upgrade some modules and some interface cards and swap out a drive here and there over time, but the typical 3-year refresh cycle might be out the window. Like, we could be looking at 5+ years with a system that has this kind of longevity.
Yeah. And the other way to look at it is SSDs are really freaking expensive. We paid for 4.7 petabytes, but we're getting 23.6.
Yeah.
You know, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Good
and this
stuff.
is not fudge data. This is just real. Yeah. You can see we're heavy users of FlexClone, but if you're in a database environment and you are not using FlexClone, you are really missing the boat.
Or like you mentioned earlier, VDI, right? For
VDI,
cloning those environments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So any reason this kind of stuff isn't on the main dashboard? Is that
we kind of ran out of space. You know, a lot of people just want to look at their inventory. I didn't even show this one, but it's inventory. You know, it says what platform it is and what storage OS it's running and when its support expires and what support level at. All the normal stuff you'd see. I didn't make a big deal out of it. But this is very commonly clicked on, you know. And this upgrade advisor is very commonly used. You know, for years, we've been helping the My Auto Support dashboard helped me plan upgrades 15 years ago when I was at a partner. And then this widget is really about planning, you know, renewals and capacity additions. And then we didn't talk about this yet, but I'll bring that up next as cloud recommendations. This is really helpful for customers, and it's also helpful for NetApp and partners, because this is all around like events you have to plan for that take time to plan. You know how long it takes to get you know, purchase order through a company to get a shelf. You can't do last minute capacity add-ons. How long it takes to plan whether you're going to do a renewal or a tech refresh, et cetera. So this is all about planning. So we just, real estate's limited, and we just chose these to be on the main.
I do see you have them up on the wellness widget up there. So, I mean, if you click on capacity, what does it show you for actions? Is it going to report that?
These are capacity. Yeah, these are capacity risks. So this is actually problems. So for example, I really don't know what's here, but let's see. So pre-failed drives are present. So they must be had done some maintenance. You can actually run a command on the storage controller to fail a drive.
Yeah.
There's some of those there, and there's a disk auto assignment problem. Disk ownership in ONTAP, you know, you can manually set it or let the system decide. There must be a
dark
problem.
art.
Yeah, it is a dark art. This is just in best practice. Yeah. If you run more than 95% full, you will see a high impact risk appear for capacity, but none of the systems here are over 95% full. So none of them quite meet that.
All right. Well, very appropriately, you started to segue us. I can't let you get out of here without talking about cloud and what we're doing for some of our cloud stuff, as well as the on-prem systems. So take me down that avenue, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, you know, ActiveIQ and previously the Motorsport dashboard, we've spent years being, you know, really great at making recommendations around on-prem systems, but we don't live in an on-prem world anymore. In fact, most of our customers have a hybrid cloud mentality where most things are on-prem, but then some things run in the cloud, and sometimes they have to move data between on-prem and the cloud and vice versa. And ActiveIQ knows about all those systems and knows what that data is doing. So we are in a unique place to make recommendations about how to better take on-prem assets and turn them into and use cloud resources. So by cloud resources, I mean, let me click on this. You can click here or here. It goes to the same place.
Okay.
Migrate to the cloud, tier to the cloud, backup to the cloud, or DR to the cloud. So we are using the knowledge we have of your systems to make recommendations based on, you know, AI and machine learning around systems that could be doing something better. And the one that is really the premier, these all four have more information if I click on them. But the one I really want to demo is tiering, because that's the one I'm really proud of. Tiering is one where we have unique information, because we know from ONTAP your hot and cold data patterns. So first, bring your attention to this wheel graph on the right here. Cold data I made blue, and red data I made hot, and then gray is we don't know because IDR isn't turned on. You have to enable IDR, and some older versions of ONTAP did not have it on by default. So IT should really go turn on things. By the way, see there's an Ansible A there? We actually make a script to go to every, it's an aggregate setting, aggregate level setting. This script, if you click here, it'll make a custom Ansible script to turn it on for every aggregate at your company.
Wow.
So yeah. So anyway, IT should probably run that since they have 19 petabytes of unmonitored data. But notice this little table's updating. But they have
that sounded like a hand slap, IT guys. Come on.
Well, sorry, I shouldn't be mean.
I'll get Matt on the phone. We'll figure it out.
There's 9.4 petabytes of cold data, and this report only show. I should have mentioned this. This report is only showing SSDs, whether they be AFF, ASA, or a FAS with an AFF or an SSD aggregate. These are because you're not going to tier things already on cheap spinning disks.
Right.
You're just not. So this is 9.4 petabytes of cold data sitting on expensive disks. So that's wasted money. But let's look at this little scatter plot over here. What if your aggregates aren't very full? You're not wasting money if that cold data is sitting on empty aggregates, right? Because you already bought that storage. So what this table is trying to represent, this little scatter plot, is used capacity in terabytes, inactive and cold data in terabytes, and then the color coding is how full the aggregate is. So notice IT has a lot of aggregates less than 50% full, the green ones. Well, who cares? You're not going to tier those, right? I mean, why would you spend money to tier things to the cloud if your aggregates are mostly empty?
Yeah, yellow, like you said, you've already bought that storage.
Yeah, you already bought it.
Why pay for it twice?
75% yellow. Maybe you would tier yellow, maybe, but red is the target. Look at these red ones if I hover. Like, look at this system. This is 89% cold data, 363 terabytes of cold data on this system. It's a prime candidate to tier this to the cloud. So this is a prime candidate to, and ONTAP has Fabric Pool, right? Fabric Pool is the technology ONTAP has to turn a local aggregate into a hybrid aggregate that's local and remote. And so this aggregate, you could turn on, you could make into a Fabric Pool aggregate and then start tiering some of this cold data to save space because, again, this is a greater than 75% full aggregate. So this would, in fact, keep IT from having to buy another shelf. Now, the reality is they may be able to vol move this data because they have so many green things, but that's a whole separate discussion.
Right.
Imagine you didn't have anywhere to vol move it.
I look at that chart and I go, that's chaos. There's a lot of unused storage. Why is all of that all shot out to the right? Yeah.
That's
I'm not picking on you, IT at all, I promise.
You should show them this graph. And
yeah, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Look at all that unused storage you've got.
That's
Why
right.
is all that out there? Right.
I will say, I mean, I'm Mr. ActiveIQ. I can run these reports in the data we have. The vast majority of our customers would be green on this graph. We notice that customers overbuy storage. I imagine that the app vendor says we need 100 terabytes, and the app guy says, okay, 200, and then the DBA says, okay, 400, and then the storage admin putting out the proposal says, okay, 800. You know, I have a feeling everybody pads, and they end up with less than half full aggregates. But,
right.
Yeah. Anyway, so then these are the actual. This is the data. If you click on like inactive aggregate data, so these are the actual aggregates, and then you can actually go and click on this and deep dive into it. The other thing is that you actually can link to BlueXP here to actually kick off the tier data wizard. So if you click this link, it's going to kick off the tiering data wizard of BlueXP, and you'll hear about that next week because you're going to get a deep dive on BlueXP, and I bet they're going to talk about the tier data wizard. So
Chuck has also promised no slides, all live demo.
All live
demo. Teaser, show up next week.
Yeah. I would like to mention before I get too far, almost everything I've been in today, there's been a thing at the top that says reports.
Yeah.
I kind of showed that before, but there's a reports over here. You can get almost everything I showed all day today. I mean, all during the session. You can get wellness in a report. You can get cloud recommendations in a report. You can get upgrade advisors. Everything can come in a report. Some customers like reports because then they can show their boss instead of a live interactive GUI. And if you like that, we basically have reports for every widget in ActiveIQ.
It's funny you mentioned reports because that was our first question that came in from
really?
Mr. Jake Tom B. Is it possible to generate upgrade advisor report for all clusters in one go to see what is the highest common supported version of ONTAP?
Great question.
Let's go see.
In a report, I'm not sure, but like in the GUI, what happens is, notice this has 3 ONTAPs. So what this is going to have is there are some systems that can only go to 9.8 that IT is running. And if so, they're here. There's 26 systems that can only go to 9.8. There are 6 systems that can only go to 9.11, and then 173 that can go to 9.12. So that's a way to see that there are 26 that are version limited, 6 to this version, 6 that are version limited to this system, and 173 that are version to here. Now, we plan upgrades a cluster at a time. I mean, you can select a single node, but we check that the cluster can do the upgrade. We're not going to let you do an upgrade if the cluster has a component that can't go to the version you're going to upgrade to. Do you know what I mean by that? So if you had an old 2500 array that cannot go to ONTAP 9.12, we will not let you plan that upgrade. We just won't. You know, we'll say, no, you have to plan an upgrade to 9.8.
Gotcha. So the ones that are down below the 9.8 P16 that say they need attention, are those things you have to remediate before you can do the ONTAP upgrade?
No, they're ones with high impact unfixed risks that will be fixed by the upgrade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what I will say is these are probably very old systems since they can only go to 9.8. Unfortunately, we did not put the architecture on the screen, which is unfortunate. Oh yeah, we did.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, why not put the model number as a column in there? But
remember, it's the oldest component in a cluster. Oh, the other thing is, remember before ONTAP 9.7, you had to hop versions. That's probably why this is taking you to 9.8. I bet these are not. I bet these are running like 9.6, and you cannot hop directly to 9.12. That's probably what it is. I bet if we looked at these.
So if you go through the 9.8 upgrade, you'll probably refresh and it'll say upgrade it to the 9, 10, 11, right?
Because none of these platforms are that old. Like this is pretty old, but that can go to a higher level than
that can run 9.11, I believe.
Right. So this, I bet if we looked, I bet these are running old versions of ONTAP, if I had to guess. Anyway.
Can I make a feature request while we're here live on air?
Sure.
Can we go back to that need attention screen that we were just on?
Yeah.
It would be cool if we could highlight that in either on that dashboard with the 3 blocks or right here that it was a hopping process, that it was max. So maybe you have a column of max compatible ONTAP version.
Yeah, that's a great
something like that. Would I think would highlight and make us have that sort of realization that we just had on air about, it's because they need to hop. Yeah.
The other thing is that I didn't show it before, but for each version of ONTAP, we have a nice little screen that says what features were released in that version. Because remember, by upgrading ONTAP, you not only get more current, you get new features, which is pretty awesome. Like, S3 client access to NAS didn't exist before 9.12. So you get that feature if you upgrade to it.
Session trunking. Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's one of my favorites.
So you could change the version here.
Yeah,
so
if you drop that down to like 9.10 or 9.9 or something like that, does the progression chart on the right kind of change? Okay, so
here,
it's a single hop.
Let me show you. Yeah. Let me show you like 9.3. See, you have to do 9.3, 9.7, 9.11.
Yeah.
If you do like 9.4 is even worse, because I think you have to do 9.4, 9.5, 9.9. Look at that progression.
Oh God.
Anyway, no one should be running. I mean, look at the end of self-support, meaning we're already in the limited support. End of self-support pretty soon. So hopefully no one's doing that. But it would be funny. How far back can I go? I wonder. Look at that hop. There you go. Anyway,
was the
but
birth
no
of
one should be
ONTAP
running this.
9, which was like
Yeah.
2015, 14,
Anyway,
15? I don't know.
If you want my opinion, no one should be below 9.7 at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
really, honestly. And 9.7 can hop to 9.11. So, yeah.
It's a good point.
All right.
What else do we do in the cloud, Brett, to kind of close things out here?
Sure.
Any other? Yeah.
So the other three widgets are DR, and DR is just that we don't detect that you have a DR. And in this case, SnapMirror or SnapMirror or what's the other one?
SnapVault.
SMV DR. We don't recognize you have any DR set up for that, either that SVM or that volume. So that's pretty cut and dry. Like, you probably aren't DRing these. Now, we do not know about host side DR. So you might have VMware DR set up and you don't care about NetApp DR. In which case, just ignore this if you're happy. Same thing with backup. We don't think you're backing up these systems, but you might be if you're using like an off-tap third-party tool that's doing it
or a Commvault
like
or one of our other backup partners. Yeah.
Right. And then migration. Migration is the only kind of interesting one, in my opinion, besides tiering, because we try to determine which application you're running. And then we will say, instead of tech refreshing this onto a physical system, why don't you tech refresh it into the cloud?
I remember we had something about 4 or 5 years ago that I worked on a little bit that was kind of a free tool out there for everybody called Config Advisor.
Right.
And it looked similar to this. Basically, it would scan your volumes in your auto supports, right, and we had the logic to figure out naming conventions and things like that and go, that's probably right, an Oracle instance, or the backing volumes of an Oracle that's instance. Right. Or
that's very similar to how this works. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can, so I will say there are 3 ways that you can have this filled in with your correct applications. One is, I don't know if you know this, but when you create a volume, did you know you can tag that volume with what application you're going to use? You can actually tag it for real when you create a volume. If you do, we use that. So we have had customers that had a policy of always tagging volumes. And then this is filled out nicely because all the volumes, all the workloads are here.
I can see where this would be really useful for companies that were actually looking to migrate to the cloud over time. They could kind of proactively go in and start kind of staging their systems.
That's exactly right.
Right? And just kind of to get it to use these tools like this to get some information out of it. Hey, we had one more little thing. Go ahead.
How we decide to put it here, though, is not just that it's running an application. It has to also be about to come off support, because you're not going to migrate to the cloud if you just purchase 3 more years of support, right? Like you just paid for that. And then another criteria is we look at the features you're using, and if it's a feature that doesn't exist in the cloud. Now, those are getting fewer and farther between. A couple of years ago when we released this, there were more, but there are some features that work for on-prem systems that just don't have an equivalent in the cloud. We also don't recommend those systems on this widget if it can't run well in the cloud.
Cool. The thing I think I want to close out with here is the comparisons between using the native digital advisor versus using it within BlueXP. Are there any differentiations there? Is it a one-to-one mapping? Is there anything I can do in the native tool that I can't do, say, in BlueXP yet?
So there's absolutely nothing. So BlueXP, you can do everything that you can do in the native tool 100%. The great thing is we're web-based. And when you're web-based and BlueXP is web-based, it's really easy to integrate it. So, but I will say, you asked me before, how do you get alerted to things? And I talked about case automation. The one thing BlueXP has that we don't is an alerting system. So this is where we're going to alert you in the future to automated actions like firmware updates that you can just click and do. Upgrades that you can click and do, fixes that you can click and do. And we have, again, I don't want to get too into roadmap, but we have ones coming for security fixes and firmware updates that are on the very, very, very short-term roadmap. And so that's a great thing that BlueXP adds here. The other thing is that we're in the Health Digital Advisor tab, but I will say we help create the digital wallet. Did you notice there's an on-prem digital wallet? We help power that. The other thing is we help power some of the other widgets over here on the left, like remediation in the future. Remediation in the future is going to have some additional remediations that's on the very short-term roadmap. So it's actually the opposite. Basically, right now we're almost identical, but in the future there's going to be a lot of additions that are only going to be in BlueXP, like alerting, notification, also the remediations and the enhancements to digital wallet.
Gotcha. Are we bringing any of our cloud storage products or services into ActiveIQ as far as Digital Advisor goes from a wellness or a capacity utilization setup?
Yep. So if I find, I wasn't prepared to answer this, but it's a great question. If you find like a CVO system and go to it, let me make sure it's sending ASUPs before I show you this, because otherwise it's going to look ridiculous. So let me just pick one. So this is a CVO system that I'm going to, and you'll notice that in ActiveIQ, once it comes up, great. Oh, but that's, I think it's anyway. So
live demos, good time.
Live demo, you can't beat them. Let me try it one more time. I think it's actually a timeout. Oh, there we go.
Third time's a charm.
So this is a CVO system. Notice wellness works for CVO. Look, performance works. Auto support viewing works. Cluster viewer works. Capacity and efficiency works. Health check. I didn't talk about health check, but they all work. The only thing that doesn't really work for CVO is things that rely on hardware. For example, you're not going to have a firmware update thing because things. And then Upgrade Advisor, it says use, whoops.
Yep.
So use BlueXP for your upgrades. It actually,
and you're not going to get cloud recommendations because it's in the cloud.
You're already in the cloud. No data available. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. This is one of the ONTAP is ONTAP
right.
sort of
ONTAP
everywhere mantras.
Right. Like your digital certificate for an SVMs needs to be renewed. It's an ONTAP issue that whether you're in the cloud or whether you're on-prem, you need to renew your digital certificate for SVMs. Yep. So it's the same. Yeah, absolutely. ONTAP is ONTAP. Yep. So anyway, right, most of this works. All right.
What else do we have? The one tab I saw in here is Valuable Insights. Let's take a quick peek. Is there anything to look at in there?
Valuable Insights is how much of both ActiveIQ and support you've used over the last year. So it tells you how many support cases you've opened, how much space you've saved with storage efficiency, how many ONTAP upgrades you've done, ONTAP and Centricity, and anyway, all of the storage OSs. I shouldn't have just said ONTAP. Applications, and anyway, so it's mostly about how you've used ActiveIQ and your support over the last year. It's for the last year.
And final question I'll throw at you. Yep. It comes up all the time for me. Is there a read-only version that I can send to a leader that comes by the desk with the cup of coffee going, so how's things going? And you need to send them some kind of overview of, look at how good of a job I'm doing. All of our systems are up to date and there's no vulnerabilities, right? Is there some kind of thing, a PDF to kick out, a view of this at a glance that I can send to
So
the
CIO? There's a report for wellness and there's a report for health check. I didn't show you health check. Health check is like, how am I doing? But like, this is like the emergency room, and health check sort of the yearly checkup, like blood pressure and cholesterol and stuff like that. So yeah, I would run a report on wellness and on health check and send them the report results. That's what I would do.
Awesome. Well, Brett, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and taking us through all of the stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this as well. And if you're watching this after the live, be sure to leave any comments that you have or questions that you have down in the comments. Or more importantly, just come join us in Discord. Brett hangs out in there. A lot of our other product managers and tech marketing engineers hang out in there, as well as a lot of our support staff. So if you need help with any of these things, have any other further questions, that is the place to be. It's the new hub of our wheel for community. We're trying to drive everybody in there because it's one central place. We've got forums in there where we can answer any Q&A or support you need. It's not an official arm of support. I have to make that clear. But it is the place to get like quick questions answered, get some config help, and ask Brett any questions you might have about ActiveIQ. So Thank you for joining us today, Brett. This has been awesome. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the show. And make sure you subscribe to the channel here. Follow us on Twitch. Follow all the socials. You guys know how to. It's 2023. You guys know how to do all of that stuff. Nobody has to tell you guys how to do that stuff anymore, right? But for Brett Albertson, thank you very much for joining me again. My name is Nick Howell, and until next time, we will see you guys next week with Mr. Chuck Foley, who is one of our leads for BlueXP. We're going to take a deep dive on BlueXP and show you guys how all of that stuff works. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.